Hi, my name is Phil Naylor. I'm a psychotherapist, and today I'm going to be providing some practical tools and strategies that can be implemented immediately to help start to manage anxiety and panic attacks. Now, in previous videos, I've mentioned that anxiety is both a physiological and a psychological issue. And when we work with anxiety, we need to work with both sides of that equation because they're both involved. On the physiological side, our fight-flight mechanism kicks in. That's what the physiological effects that we feel when we feel anxious. That's our body's response to a perceived threat or danger. And that's meant from an evolutionary point of view to keep us alive in the face of physical danger. So if we see the bear or the tiger, if we're walking through the woods, our brains say, well, that's dangerous, and it initiates a response where we kick in adrenaline into our system, we raise our heart rate up fast, we breathe short and shallow and fast, and we sweat, and we have all these other physiological responses that happens, and that's in order to prepare our bodies to do what it needs to do in the face of danger. And on the psychological side, it's all about perception. It's what we perceive, what we see as being a threat or a danger to us. And so we'll talk about that in a moment. But if we really want to be effective, we've got to work with both sides of that equation. And I'm going to talk about the physiological side first, because that is, especially if you're in high anxiety or panic mode, when your body is in survival mode, really engaged in the fight-flight response, then that's when our cognitive strategies, trying to reason ourselves out and say, oh, that's silly, you shouldn't be anxious about that, that shouldn't be upsetting to you, or to try and sort of come up with, what's a different way that I can think or perceive that situation? That doesn't work very well in those situations because we're just being overwhelmed by our physiological response. And no matter how logical we try to be, we're having that awful feeling of anxiety, and we may be, melting down or panicking. So in those cases, we really want to kind of work on the physiological side of things. And so there's a couple of strategies that I'm going to utilize. I'm going to show in a moment, which can be very effective in helping to de-escalate us when we're very anxious or moving into a panic attack. So the simplest, most effective technique, there's many different techniques, but the simplest are breathing techniques, and we can utilize those anywhere. And there's a couple of effective breathing techniques that are very helpful for managing panic and anxiety. And the first is like the 10-second calm down breath. And this is especially good for if we're escalating into a panic attack. And this is simply, and I'll just kind of explain and then demonstrate, it's simply taking the deep breath, holding it in, clenching all of our muscles and holding that for 5 or 10 seconds, and then releasing. And so if we find ourselves really kind of escalating, we take a deep breath in, and then we tense all of our muscles. That would be everything from our legs, our torso, our face, scrunch it all up, our fists like that, as tight as you can. And hold that for 5 to 10 seconds, and then release it. Just have a slow breath and relax. And then there's an instant wave of almost calming energy that happens. And sometimes just one breath is all that's needed, or you can do that several times. Take in several breaths in, clench, hold, and then out and relax. So that's a very important physical technique to utilize when we're really getting into that kind of fight-flight method, or moving into that panic attack. The second one is also very helpful, probably in the early stages of moving into a panic attack, or just as a breathing exercise when just you're generally feeling anxious, or even especially as a routine exercise that we do throughout the day that helps us keep us calm and relaxed. Now, I usually talk about having a practice and a wellness practice that would include regular, consistent breathing exercises. Because when we're anxious, when we have chronic anxiety, our nervous systems are revved up all the time. And so we really need to calm and soothe that nervous system. And the way to do, because it's been conditioned into that, and the way we do that is by regular, consistent breathing exercises. So this is a exercise that can be used, kind of a universal one that we can, if we use this 5 to 10 minutes 3 times a day, that can do a lot for our overall general anxiety levels. And we can also use it when we feel ourselves escalating up into an anxiety situation. So this is called square breathing or box breathing, and gets its name because there's a particular pattern of breathing that we use that involves breathing in, holding our breath, breathing out, holding our breath. So it would involve, so if you, I'll just utilize my finger to breathe in as going upwards as an in-breath, and then we hold the breath, and then we breathe out, and then hold the breath at the bottom. So it's in, hold, out, hold, in, hold, out, hold. So usually we use something like a 4 count, for example, and that can be adjusted depending on your comfort level. But we utilize a 4 count, so you would breathe into the count of 4, in, 2, 3, 4. Then we hold our breath, 2, 3, 4, and then we breathe out, 2, 3, 4. So just breathing all the way out, kind of emptying the lungs. Then when we breathe out, you hold, and 2, 3, 4. So it looks like this. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, etc. And you just continue that for a few minutes, or as long as when you start to feel like you're calmed down. Now you have to practice this a little bit beforehand, because when people first try it, some people get it right off the bat, but at first it feels kind of awkward. You almost feel like you're kind of losing your breath. Like, this is almost making it worse. You almost feel panicked. I can't catch my breath. That just means you have to play with it. Just, don't give up on that. Just regulate it. Just do it a little slower, a little quicker. Use a 3 count instead of a 4 count. But you'll find that you get into, once you find the right rhythm, you kind of get into this groove. And it just becomes, you kind of in the zone. It just kind of keeps you calm and relaxed. And you just use that rhythm as a way to help you relax. So practice that ahead of time. And when you get good at it, you'll find that you can just pull it out at any time. It just becomes second nature. So not until it becomes second nature do you want to use that with a panic attack, because that's when if you try to do that and you're confused about how to do it, that can make things worse. So make sure you're very comfortable in using that technique before you start to use it as it escalates up. It can be very effective. So that's the 2 techniques to manage our physiological reaction. Then from a psychological point of view, like I said, it's all about perception. So it's our minds get involved. And I'd like to, this is something that's not really talked about, but we want to utilize our imagination, because when you think about it, it's our imaginations that really get involved in escalating our anxiety, because we imagine scenarios that happen in the future. What if this happens? So we have, so it's not just thinking, we do have the thoughts about it, but we unconsciously imagine a scene about what that would be like, and we can almost imagine the feelings of what that would feel like to be in that situation, or if the what if happens. And so our imaginations get involved to kind of create this threat picture, which then of course launches our physiological response of anxiety. And the other way is that we remember things, bad things that happened before, and that terrible thing that happened, and we remember it, and we bring it right into our heads, and we can feel it again. And so and we resist, that was awful, and we were saying that. So we're using our imaginations either to visualize threat situations in the future, or to recall things that actually happened in the past. That's what a lot of PTSD is about, is that we keep recalling this awful thing that happened, and then our bodies respond, because our bodies don't distinguish between real and imaginary. As long as our sort of mind is sending a signal of there's a threat here, it responds in that same physiological way. It doesn't matter if it's a physical threat or psychological threat. So it just launches into the physiological response. So we bombard ourselves with these threat scenarios through our minds. And when we continually do that, that's what creates the ongoing anxiety response. So the technique here is to kind of use this in a positive way, because if it's true for a negative event, if it seems like a negative event is actually occurring when we imagine it, it's also true for a positive event. So if we visualize something positive happening to us, something that makes us really feel good, our bodies think, oh, that's happening right now too. And it has a corresponding physiological response to that too. So if you're imagining a beautiful scene, you're in the woods and there's a little stream or a waterfall and you're just relaxing and feeling great and safe, then your body feels, oh, this is safe and this is feeling good. And it starts to release, positive endorphins and all the positive physiological things that go along with that. So if we can start to visualize on a consistent basis positive scenes, imagine positive things, these can be things. It's good to just have a list of things that actually did happen to you that you really enjoyed. Things that if you go back to them, you can just immerse yourself in them. Imagine you're right there. You have a list of these things. If you can go and hold those consistently for at least 15 seconds at a time, and just go down your list and keep visualizing the positive things that happened in the past, or they don't even have to be positive. They could be positive things you want to happen in the future, as long as you can imagine what it feels like and really immerse yourself in that. The more we can immerse ourselves in positive visualization, positive scenes, using our imagination positively, it starts to counteract the physiological and negative thought, habituated thought patterns that we have that are negative. So this is a technique that we can utilize ongoing. You have it as a daily practice of positive visualization, imagining positive outcomes to situations instead of negative outcomes. So this is a powerful technique, the engagement of our imagination. And that can have a very beneficial effect on us physiologically as well as psychologically. So those are a couple of techniques. If we use those in combination, using your physical techniques to manage the physiological aspects and starting to use psychological techniques like this visualization or active imagination to create a positive state of being in your mind and in your body, this really helps to manage our anxiety state. So I hope that these couple of tips are beneficial, that they're useful, and I encourage you to go ahead and try them. And if you give me some feedback, if you like these ideas, if you try them, if you think this worked out well, just give me a comment and give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, or say something, and I'd hope to engage with you in a little bit of dialogue around this further. So thanks for joining me.